this meeting of council today, which due to government advice to practice social distancing, this meeting will be held virtually, and the meeting is being recorded and be available via the council's website to be viewed as soon as practical following the meeting. Everyone participating in the meeting will be accessing this meeting from remote locations. Please could everybody ensure their mobile phones are switched off or on silent mode. Members will receive an electronic copy of the agenda and will ask officers to present summary of the key points. And for the record, the agenda can be viewed on the council's website. Members and officers will be speaking at various points during the meeting, and those speaking may switch the cameras on at that point. I would ask, at the exception of myself as mayor, and at all other times, you keep your cameras, microphones switched off, as this will help to minimise the background noise and interference and to ensure connection remains as stable as possible. If any member and officers wish to raise a point of question, they should use the hands up icon on the screen, and I'll come to you in the order of received requests. Please don't use your microphone until I invite you to do so. Please lower your hand once you have finished speaking. Please also do not use the chat function, as on Teams we cannot clear any text on the recording, but I think that's now disabled anyway. In the event that the council requires to vote on any item of business before it at the meeting, the monitoring officer will call out the name for each member present in turn and request them to vote verbally either for, against or abstain. I'll then ask the monitoring officer to announce the result of the vote and the council's decision on that item. Officers from Democratic Services and ITT will be supporting the meeting and will be monitoring the use of microphones throughout the meeting, and where necessary will mute those not being used. Before we formally commence, I will now ask the officer from Democratic Services to announce the names of the councillors in attendance in this meeting. I will also ask the officers to introduce themselves as and when I invite them to speak during the course of the meeting. They too should ensure microphones and cameras are switched off and not in use. So can I ask first, before we start, the councillors who can turn their cameras off and microphones, because I can see we still have two, Councillor Thomas and Councillor Boise. Can you please turn cameras off and we can commence the meeting then? And I can hand over to Michael Pittman to announce the members in attendance. Michael.
Members in attendance today are Councillor Alex Williams, Councillor Altaf Hussain, Councillor Amanda Williams, Councillor Anil Pachella, Councillor Brian Jones, Councillor Carolyn Webster, Councillor Charles Smith, Councillor Keith Edwards, Councillor David Lewis, Councillor David White, Councillor Denisha Patel, Councillor Gareth Howells, Councillor Gary Thomas, Councillor Hugh David, Councillor James Radcliffe, Councillor Jane Gebby, Councillor Janice Lewis, Councillor John McCarthy, Councillor John Spanswick, Mayor and Chairperson, Councillor John Paul Blundell, Councillor Julia Williams, Councillor Kay Rowlands, Councillor Ken Watts, Councillor Lynn Walters, Councillor Martin Jones, Councillor Matthew Voisey, Councillor Mike Clark, Councillor Mike Kern, Councillor Nicole Burnett, Councillor Nora Clark, Councillor Pam Davis, Councillor Paul Davis, Councillor Richard Collins, Councillor Richard Granville, Councillor Richard Young, Councillor Malcolm James, Councillor Rod Shaw, Councillor Sadie Vidal, Councillor Sean Aspey, Councillor Sorrel Dendy, Councillor Stuart Baldwin, Councillor Tom Beadle, Councillor Ross Thomas, and Councillor Tom Gifford. That's everyone, I believe. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Michael. If somebody hasn't been mentioned on there now who are here, shout now or forever hold your peace. Okay. Right, so we move to item 1 of today's agenda, apologies for absence. At the moment, I've received apologies from officers Mark Shepherd, annual leave, and Claire Marchant on annual leave, and councillors Lane Venables, Tim Thomas, and Steve Smith. Are there any other further apologies? Councillor Alex Williams.
Councillor Cheryl Green, please.
Thank you. Councillor Lynn Walters.
I'm going to have to leave just before 5, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. No further apologies. Brian Jones.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have to leave early as well, around about 4.
Right, that's the meeting. Okay. Today's meeting is going to go on a bit longer than that, but thank you. Councillor Kent Watts.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I shall probably have to leave around 4:30 to get the grandchildren.
Okay, thank you. And maybe else then I seen we're all done. Councillor Jones, no, right. Councillor Martin Jones.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have to leave the meeting at 4:30, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you for that. Right, we all. Councillor Gareth Owells.
I'm not sure if apologies to give for Councillor Bridie Sedgmere, Chair.
Right, Councillor Brady said for you. Okay, thanks. Somebody has a microphone on. I can hear whispering in the background. Right.
No, I'm muted.
Right, Councillor Mary Hughes, can you turn your microphone off, please? Thank you. Item 2 then, declaration of interest. See prejudicial declaration of prejudicial and personal interest from members, officers in accordance with provisions of the Members' Code of Conduct of the Council from 1st of September 2008. If you have any indications, please, if you have any declarations, please indicate. I'll come to you in turn. Any declarations from councillors or officers? No, all quiet there. Okay. Item 3 then, approval of the minutes from the 9th of May 2021 and the 23rd of June. Can I have a mover and second, please, for the minutes?
Move.
9th of May. Seconded.
Second, Chair.
And the 23rd of June as well.
Right. Aye.
Okay, those minutes. All in favour?
Right.
You're nothing. You're all happy with that? Okay. Item 4 then, receive announcements from myself starting off. Some of the issues there at the beginning. We will need to have some, at least one break during today's meeting with the lovely weather we got, and we've got quite a heavy agenda, so we will at appropriate times require some a break, at least one. So what have I been up to the last couple of weeks, last month? Before that, the further meeting and the announcement of the Governance and Audit Committee has been scheduled for 9th September at 2 p.m. This was agreed with the committee at its meeting held on the 18th of June 2021. The reason for this meeting being added to the programme of meetings is common business scheduled on the forward work programme that needs to be considered before the next scheduled meeting of the Governance and Audit Committee in November 2021. This is the last council meeting. I have the pleasure of being present at the groundbreaking ceremony of the new Welsh School childcare facility at Blackmill, the opening of Joe's flower shop at Kevin Cribbo. I do need practice cutting the ribbon because it took 3 attempts to cut it. I think the scissors was either blunt or too small. On the Sunday 27th of June, it was a pleasure to be back at Kevin Cribbo and spend a few hours at the annual Kevin Cribbo Open Gardens Day. There were some stunning displays and the weather was really kind as well. A great event and one that should not be missed, especially like taking a look at how your garden should be. Later that day, we also, myself and the Mayoress, visited the resident in a care home at Maesteg, celebrating her 101st birthday. I know the following week, the Deputy Mayor visited another resident at the same care home, celebrating her 100th birthday. On the 28th of June, I was invited to join the Polish ambassador on his visit to the Porthcawl Museum and the war graves of 5 Polish servicemen who paid the ultimate price in the Second World War and are buried at Porthcawl Cemetery. A very moving experience as I accompanied the ambassador to pay our respects as we laid a wreath at each one of the war graves. If you've not visited Porthcawl Museum, I suggest you consider taking a trip there, as while it may look small on the outside, it's like a TARDIS inside with lots of interesting memorabilia and information about our local area. Along with that, the most recent one after that was the Kenfig Nature Reserve as part of its open day. It was great to see some members there as well. And our trustees have started to make the visitor centre more sustainable plans for the future to provide an indoor cafe looking out onto the reserve. It's great to see that this important landmark in our county borough is in safe hands and has a prosperous future. And just lately, last week, was a very interesting visit to Abercurdian Primary School to present an award for the Love It Don't Trash It award to The young girl there who got up with the winning poster, the design that's going to go on the streets to try and get people to look after the environment and pick up the litter. But one very sort of interesting point, the head teacher made a point that wanted me to thank BCBC for all the great work it has done and continues to do, especially during the pandemic, and especially Lindsay Harvey as the director for his support and his personal touch in ringing head teachers and keeping in touch with them. But also Louise Curtin from BCB Catering and all the catering team for all the food parcels and the marvellous work that's been done there, and the head teacher couldn't thank the authority enough for that. The children were amazing after the award. They were more interested in my chain and trying to grab it. And they had two questions to me. One was, do you live in a mansion? I said, no, unfortunately, same as you, just an ordinary house. But the really answer one I wish you did. They said, do you drive a Ferrari? I can only wish and hope for that one. But the mayor's car is nice. And this morning, just the last hour or so, I've attended a not forgotten summer party at Weni Priory for all our veterans. It was 100 years old this year, and it was formed in 1921 after the First World War for all those soldiers that come back who were forgotten, unfortunately. And this provides a lot of help and support for our armed forces and has been doing so for 100 years. So I'd suggest you perhaps look up the Not Forgotten charity on our on the website, and perhaps you'd consider making a small donation to them. They do some great work. And on that, final last few words about the Mayor's Charity Fund. While there's no longer a Mayor's Charity Committee, my wife and I fully intend to try and raise as much as possible for lads and dads and Bridgend Carer Centre. So on Saturday, the 14th of August, my wife, as Mayoress, but without the chain, will be taking part in a tandem skydive from 12,000 feet at Swansea Airfield. I've set up a GoFundMe page where donations can be made, and it's also possible to make a donation via the BCBC website by going onto the Mayor's page. All donations will be going to the groups mentioned, and not a penny will be spent on the cost of this event or any event, and we'll be funding that ourselves. There'll be other events, hopefully a Christmas raffle, and some other ways of raising money. The Welsh Three Peaks Challenge I talked about previously was looking at September, now likely to take place in April 2022. As I realise that perhaps a few councils out there need a bit of encouragement to participate and to get their hiking boots on with some training over the winter months. So further news with that in the future. Thank you all. That's enough for me for now. And I shall move on to members of the Cabinet with the Deputy Leader first, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My announcement is regarding the new community recycling facility at the Village Farm Industrial Estate. Final preparations are underway at Village Farm Industrial Estate in Pyle for the all-new community recycling centre. Together with fellow Cabinet members and local members, I've visited the site for an early look at what it's going to offer, and I have to say I was very impressed. Featuring a split-level design, drivers will be able to follow a simple one-way system around the new centre. They'll be able to choose whether they want to access parking bays and recycling skips at ground level, or to use the bypass lanes and ramps which lead to high-sided skips on an upper level. With an all-weather canopy on the high level, the site features flexible bollards to help guide drivers and prevent accidental damage to vehicles. Lighting powered by on-site solar panels and flat curb-free parking bays to enhance safety and remove potential trip hazards for people carrying waste from their cars. Capable of accommodating up to 24 vehicles at a time, the new recycling centre also features on-site queuing capacity for a further 72 vehicles, and there are plans to create a reuse shop at the site. At the last meeting of Council, I outlined how work is also taking place at the entrance to Village Farm Industrial Estate to ease congestion and support the flow of traffic. This will result in a new dedicated turning lane from the A48 into Hale Mostyn, new traffic lights and a new safe crossing island. Together, the junction improvements and the new recycling centre represent a £2.3 million investment that is going to help thousands of households to recycle even more of their waste. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. And it was remiss of me, so I forgot to mention the head teacher, Abby Curdy. Also want a big thank you to Councillor Howell Williams for his support as governor at the school. Sorry about that, I forgot that. She wanted to make sure everybody was thanked for their support. So Moving on next to Cabinet Member Communities, Councillor Stuart Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the Mayoress as well for going and jumping out of a plane. She certainly is braver than I would do, although I'd put it down to medical grounds not being allowed to do it. My announcement today is in relation to the local development plan, and public consultation over the replacement LDP is ongoing, and I understand that the draft report on this engagement is already more than 800 pages long. This is good news, as we are encouraging as many people as possible to take part and have their say, and we will be continuing to do so right up until the deadline of Tuesday the 27th of July. The plan will, of course, be used to determine what kinds of developments can take place throughout the county borough between now and 2033, so it is important for people to be aware of its wide-reaching scope. We want residents to understand how, once completed, it will set out how land can be used and which parts of the county borough will be maintained as open space or designated for residential, employment, retail, waste, mineral development, community and tourism purposes. The plan seeks to ensure that there are enough new homes to meet the needs of growing communities, while also providing new infrastructure and facilities and drawing in fresh economic investment to the area. It aims to support the creation of 5,000 additional jobs, deliver new developments and regeneration within Bridgend, Pencoed, Maesteg, Pyle and Porthcawl, and to ensure that each new development contributes positively to creating or enhancing environments within which people, communities, businesses and nature can thrive. The council website outlines the different ways in which you can take part and what alternative formats are available, and copies are also available at local libraries. With just 1 week left to the deadline, I hope that members will encourage their constituents to look at it in closer detail and to pass on their views so that we can take account of them and agree a final draft. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you for that. And the next one, Cabinet Member, Social Services and Early Help, Councillor Nicole Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm afraid mine isn't a very happy announcement at all. At the meeting of Council last December, I updated members on how adult social care services were facing elevated risks as a result of the coronavirus pandemic and outlined the steps that would be taken to counter its impact. I'm afraid that I have to advise members that the situation continues to be very serious and that it's not limited to Bridgend County Borough. Essential services are continuing to be regularly reviewed, prioritised and coordinated at a director and heads of service level. Our prioritised service area cover both adult and children's social care and include safeguarding, care of the most vulnerable, mental health assessments, case management for vulnerable children, residential care, day services, respite care and services that support fostering. However, Welsh Government recently confirmed that services such as reablement and domiciliary care are facing particular challenges in terms of their capacity to respond to projected demand. Here in Bridgend, we are now providing 640 hours per week more than we did in April 2020, and we are receiving increasing requests to extend existing care packages. We desperately want to avoid people being forced to wait for a package of care to become available. This situation is being exacerbated by factors such as individuals not wanting to seek treatment or going to hospital, family members being unable to care for them as they might once have been able to do, increased social isolation issues as a result of staying at home, as well as many other factors, including the impact of long COVID on a younger population. We must face the reality that this level of demand is likely to be in place for both the medium and longer term. Alongside this, we are also dealing with challenging workforce pressures and difficulties in both retaining and recruiting social care staff. As part of our response, a bronze level task group is in place and it is working through an agreed action plan. We are working closely with our health board partners on joined up recruitment processes, exploring the use of agency workers and looking at ways to increase the uptake of direct payments. A review of people within the current service and a resource matrix will be in place, and in addition we'll be looking at care home vacancy opportunities. We are also working to attract young people and individuals who want experience in the care sector through an enhanced recruitment process. Working within social care can be very rewarding, and I would like to ask all members to help promote social care as a career within their local wards and to direct people who are seeking job opportunities towards the provider services. We are committed to working with people and families and to prioritise those who are most in need, both in the community and in a hospital setting. However, we need to recognise the seriousness of the situation we are facing within social care, which regrettably could result in a rise in complaints around us not being able to meet a person's assessed needs. In the meantime, staff are continuing to demonstrate their usual dedication and determination, and I would like to recognise them all and thank them once more for their continued efforts. The situation continues to remain open to change rapidly, and I will bring you further updates as the pandemic continues. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Next, Cabinet Member, Wellbeing and Future Generations, Councillor Denisha Patel.
Thank you, Mayor. Welsh Government have set up a new fund to support private housing tenants who have fallen behind on their rent. The £10 million tenancy hardship grant is designed to prevent people from losing their tenancies if they fell behind on their rent by more than 8 weeks during the period March 2020 to June 2021. The grant is open to people who are not receiving housing-related benefits and replaces the tenancy saver loan, which was originally introduced in October 2020. Anyone who received the loan as part of that scheme will have their loan converted to grant. Anyone who is struggling to pay their rent for whatever reason should contact their landlord or agent and organisations such as Citizens Advice and Shelter Cymru as early as possible to ensure that they can receive the right advice and support. To apply for the tenancy hardship grant, people should email housing@bridgen.gov.uk and use the subject heading as THG support grant in their email. More details of the grant eligibility is available on the Welsh Government website. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Finally, the Cabinet Member, Education and Regeneration, Councillor Charles Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sure that members will want to join me in congratulating Bryn Tyrion Comprehensive School for becoming the first school in Bridgen County Borough to be awarded for its efforts to support young people with autism. The school has spent the last 2 years raising awareness of autism amongst teachers, pupils, staff, governors and the wider community. And Autism Wales has recognised their efforts with a prestigious Learning with Autism Secondary School Award. This is a fitting testament to the hard work and effort that all at Bryn Tyrion Comprehensive have put in, and their desire to ensure that children with autism can receive the best school experience possible. Mr. Mayor, I'd also like to make members aware that once schools close for the summer break, a wide range of free activities is available for children and young people to enjoy as part of this year's Summer of Fun programme. The Active for Life scheme will offer children aged 8 to 11 sports, games and creative arts, while the IRD is providing bilingual sports camps to give 3 to 11-year-olds a chance to try some team sports and games. Young Ambassador volunteers will provide a 21 Things to Do in Summer 21 programme, featuring activities ranging from stargazing to making a den. And at local libraries, children will be able to take part in the nature-themed Wild World Heroes Summer Reading Challenge. Bringarw Country Park, Menter Bro Ogur and Hela Leisure are also offering a range of activities, and full details will be published soon. Some of the sessions may have limited capacity because of the pandemic, so where advance booking is required, members may wish to advise their constituents to book as early as possible. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that. And the chief exec, there's no chief exec present today, there's on leave, so there's apologies, so there's no item there. So we'll move on now to item 5, the receive announcements by the leader. Leader, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The latest changes to the pandemic restrictions have been confirmed by Welsh Government, and the majority took effect in Bridgend County Borough from Saturday, the 17th of July. While face coverings remain a legal requirement in all indoor public places and on public transport, educational settings and hospitality will be exempt. Up to 6 people are able to meet indoors within private homes and holiday accommodation, and there is no longer to be a limit on how many can gather outdoors. Outdoor premises and events now have great flexibility around physical distancing, and organised indoor events will be able to take place for up to 1,000 people if seated and 200 people if standing. Previous restriction requiring people attending events to be seated in order to consume food and drink has been lifted. In other changes, up to 30 children from organisations such as the Brownies and Scouts are able to attend residential centres over the summer holidays, and businesses will be required to share information with their staff about the risk and mitigation details contained within their COVID-19 individual risk assessment plans. Adults and under 18s no longer need to self-isolate when returning from amber list countries, but it should also be pointed out that official advice remains to avoid non-essential foreign travel and to holiday at home this summer. Whilst the changes are welcome, we must also remember that coronavirus cases are rising, particularly in Bridgend County Borough and particularly among people who are aged 25 and under. The Director of Public Health at Cwmtaf Morgannwg University Health Board, Professor Kelechi Noam, has warned that in more recent days, sadly, we are beginning to see hospital cases rising again. The headroom that we had during the second wave does not exist any longer because the NHS are now trying to bring back as many services as possible respond to the need for elective cases that have built up in the community. We still need to take precautions and act as a single unified community in order to protect others from the risk of exposure. Local vaccination rates remain very high, with almost 83,000 residents having now benefited from both doses of the vaccine, but it remains vitally important for everyone to take part and help protect others. Depending on how the situation changes between now and then, the next pandemic review by Welsh Government could see us safely moving further out of alert level 1 and into alert level 0. You will know more about this when the results of the review are announced next month, and of course we will keep members updated. Members will be aware that in many of our local communities, the issue of ongoing maintenance of streets that have not been adopted by the council remains a source of concern. That could all be about to change thanks to a new Welsh Government initiative, which we're about to pilot here in Bridgend County Borough. Using the results of a previous survey, Anna's last sympathy call has been selected to benefit from work that will bring the street up to the standard required for it to be formally adopted by the authority. The scheme will involve reconstructing footways and carriageways, carrying out surveys, repairing highway drainage when necessary, and undertaking other associated works. £230,000 pilot scheme is designed to provide Welsh Government with a better understanding of the cost implications of tackling the historic backlog of such streets throughout Wales. It is hoped that work will commence during the summer or autumn this year, with an aim to complete the process by March 2022. If successful, it could lead to further unadopted streets being brought up to standard and adopted for future maintenance, which in turn will benefit many local residents. Finally, members will have seen the announcement from WRW Construction that they are going into administration. This is, of course, very disappointing news. But it's not the first time a construction company has gone into administration. And it does not present us with insurmountable problems. Most high-profile local development to be affected by this is the Sunnyside Wellness Village, which has been led by Link Cymru and funded by Welsh Government and Cymtach Morgannwg University Health Board. Elsewhere in the county borough, WRW were involved in the Children's Hub development at Bryn Menyn and the Welsh Medium Childcare Facility planned for Blackmill. Whilst this will inevitably impact upon the timescales for these projects, we remain confident that another high-quality contractor will soon be confirmed and that the developments will still be delivered for the benefit of local residents. We, of course, will work to ensure that the disruption is kept to an absolute minimum, and we'll work very closely with partners to address the situation, and we'll bring you further updates as we have more developments to share. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that, Leader. Moving swiftly on now to item 6, then we have the review of the corporate plan targets for 21-22 following the impact of COVID-19. I think it's over to Jill. Yeah, Jill, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And for the purposes of the recording, Jill Lewis, Interim Chief Officer, Finance, Performance and Change. So the report that you have in front of you today is a review of the corporate plan targets for 21-22 following the impact of COVID-19. And the purpose is to seek council approval of the proposed changes to the corporate plan targets for this year, which is outlined in Appendix A. So the corporate plan was refreshed in February 2021, which was endorsed by Cabinet and approved by Council in line with our normal statutory requirement to review the corporate plan annually. And as part of the approval process for the refreshed corporate plan, it was acknowledged that COVID-19 had an impact on our planning cycle, making it much more challenging to set targets for 21-22. And I think we realised that that we needed to be much more flexible in our approach to setting targets to make sure that our business planning is robust and effective. So as part of the COVID recovery planning, based on the year-end data, each directorate had the opportunity to consider the targets for 21-22, and it's very opportune to do a refresh of the corporate plan. As you will know, as members and as council, you approved the corporate plan towards the end of the financial year along with the budget. But obviously at that point in time, you haven't got the full year data, which obviously is only completed by the end of March. And so doing the corporate plan refresh at this time of year gives an opportunity to take into account what was achieved in the previous year, and therefore to make more realistic business planning targets going forward. So as part of the recovery planning, each directorate has had an opportunity to consider the targets for 21-22. Proposed changes to those targets were considered at the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee on the 5th of July to ensure obviously appropriate challenge and transparency. At the Cabinet yesterday, they considered the proposed changes to the corporate plan targets for 21-22. If those targets are approved by Council today, then Appendix A, which sets out the proposed target changes, they'll be published as an addendum to our current corporate plan. And many of you will be aware of the Local Government and Election Wales Act 2021, which demands us to do a much wider review of performance and governance for the council. And as part of that process, we're proposing that corporate planning adopts this approach to target setting for future planning cycles as well, to ensure that our corporate plan remains as up to date as possible. And we are, as I say, enabling ourselves to look at the most recent year-end data. So that was really all I wanted to say, Mr. Mayor, today. I'll take you to the recommendations at 9.1 and 9.2, and happy, as my colleagues will be as well, to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Jill. Can I have a mover and seconder first for the recommendations?
Move, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favour?
Aye.
Right, we'll take speakers out. Councillor David, leader.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to thank officers for their work on refreshing the targets and the plan. It is, of course, inevitable that some of those targets would be significantly affected by the pandemic. I referenced some of them yesterday in the cabinet meeting where we discussed this at length, so I won't repeat some of those comments, Mr. Mayor, but simply to point out the obvious impact it's had in terms of the impact on rough sleepers and other homeless people and the support we've provided. And that indicator is red, but also interestingly, the way that data is reported and presented has also changed. And therefore, we need to change the way that we report and present that data. Likewise, as another very good example, we were pre-COVID very confident that we could improve the Wi-Fi connectivity in our primary and secondary schools, but obviously those plans were delayed, but we're confident that we'll get that investment back on track. And I wanted to thank as well members of the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee for their constructive engagement in this process, and I'm very happy to support the revised plan and revised targets. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, leader. Any other members? Do you have any questions to our officers? All quiet. Councillor Rodshaw.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could query just one item on page 58, it says the number of additional dwellings created as a result of bringing empty properties back into use, and in 2021 it's actually slipped to 2. I wonder if it's actually breaching viability, but what are the plans? I can see it says 7 for the following year and the year after, but is there any logical reason why it's fallen so low?
Jill?
I'm not sure whether Councillor Patel wants to come in or Janine first before I answer.
Councillor Patel, have you got your hand up? Could you help?
Yeah, I'm happy for Jill to go first if you want, and then I can mop up if there's anything left to say.
Okay. I mean, this is purely down to the COVID, and we didn't actually think that we would achieve any brought back into use, and so we actually think that 2 is quite an achievement given the year that we've had. So I accept that our target, and perhaps this plays to the report itself, which is why we are recommending that we refresh the corporate plan, because obviously things do change, and an awful lot changed last year. And so it is purely down to COVID. And as we make a good dent in the empty properties, there will be obviously less. The housing market is very buoyant at the moment, and therefore our target has been revised downwards. But I'll hand over to Councillor Patel to add to that.
Yeah, just adding, I think in terms of internal resource, so the main officer that was dealing with it is actually heading up our TTP enforcement team. And so it's back of house resource as well that I think has had a knock-on effect, because a lot of officers have been seconded over to TTP or volunteered to go over to TTP, and that's obviously really important and a priority for us as a local authority. That said, we will be as we move out of COVID and the restrictions, we are putting a focus back on it, and that's how you can see that we've moved up to 7 for next year. It might be more, because I think the last target was overachieved what we'd asked. You know, the actual figure had overachieved the target, so fingers crossed that'll happen again now post restrictions.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You okay with that?
That's fine. Thank you for your response.
Okay. Right, there's no further, I can see any further indications, any members have any questions? So thank you, Jill, for that. It's the first of 3. So we'll move on to item 7. Back to you, Jill. Capital Programme Outturn 2021 and Q1 Update 21-22.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, for the purposes of the recording, Jill Lewis, Interim Chief Officer Finance, Performance and Change. So what you have in front of you here this afternoon is a double report. It outlines the capital programme outturn for 2021 and the Q1 update report for 21-22. So it provides an update on the outturn for 2021, which is outlined in Appendix A, an update of the capital position for 21-22 as at the 30th of June, Appendix B, to seek approval from Council for a revised capital programme for 21-22 to 2030-31, at Appendix C, just to remind Council, the capital programme is a 10-year programme. And also to note the projected prudential and other indicators for 21-22, which are set out in Appendix D. So you'll see at 3.4 on the 24th of February in 2020, which was some time ago and just before the pandemic, the council approved a capital budget of approximately 56.5 million for 2021 to 29-30. Now that programme was last updated on the 23rd of June this year in 2021. So this report gives you the outturn, the monitoring, the revised programme, the capital strategy, and the prudential and other indicators. So if I start, Mr. Mayor, with the outturn position, which is set out from 4.1 onwards. The 2021 budget was revised and approved during the year. You'll know that you get regular reports on the capital programme. And during the year, we brought forward some items from 2019-20 and also new schemes and approvals that you'll be familiar with. And the capital programme that was approved in February 21 totalled 35.5 million, 12 million from BC resources and 23 million from external resources. Again, as you will recall, as council, much of our capital programme or some of our capital programme obviously comes from external grants and other resources outside of the council. Appendix A provides all the detail on each of the individual schemes. So the revised programme was approved in February 21, and so there haven't been that many changes since then. There have been new approvals of round about 3 million, and that again is mainly from grant schemes. So the school maintenance grant, the East Hub, green recovery, and the circular economy, to name but a few. We also brought 300k back from 21-22 to give a revised budget of 38 million. And against that, the total expenditure of 23 million was recorded, with slippage and adjustments of 15 million, giving a net underspend of 139k, which was taken back to council funding. There is a confusion sometimes between slippage and an underspend on the capital programme, and I think it's really important that we understand that the capital programme moves on a constant basis, and the slippage doesn't mean that those resources are then re-available. It means that they've moved into further years. So I think that's a really important concept to just remind everybody. As we've already heard many times, the impact of the pandemic was great on the capital programme, and many schemes commenced but were not completed in 2021, and in fact some of them were wholly moved into 21-22. And I think everybody will have witnessed the fact that it was extremely difficult to undertake major works of any sort and projects during the last 12 months. The schemes that have been affected by the slippage are set out at 414. So that's the outturn. If I move to the Q1 update, so the capital programme for 21-22 to 30-31 totals 87 million, 53 million from BCBC resources and 34 million from external resources. And table 1 sets out the programme for each of the directorates in turn. Table 2 below, table 1 sets out the current funding assumptions, and appendix B sets out the detailed schemes. So at 424, you will see that there are a number of amendments to the capital programme for 21-22, such as new and amended schemes, as I just referred to, and that's since the capital programme was last approved. I wasn't intending to go through these in detail. There are quite a few of them, and members will have an opportunity to ask any questions that they may have on any of those schemes. So a revised capital programme is set out at Appendix C. 4.3 onwards sets out the monitoring of the prudential and other indicators, and Appendix D details the indicators and shows that the council is operating within approved limits. At 4.4 is detailed the monitoring on the non-treasury management investments and other long-term liabilities. So that was all I wanted to say, Mr. Mayor, on the report. I'll take you to the recommendations at 9.1. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jill. So the recommendations, could I first have a mover and seconder, please, for the recommendations?
Chair, formally
Move,
moved.
Chair. Second.
Right, thank you. And can I go to the Deputy Leader, Councillor Williams?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank Jill for presenting the report. There's a lot of detail in that. And I think I want to thank not only Jill but the team, because there's a lot of grants involved in our capital programme, and those grants have to be applied for. And I think Virgin County Borough Council has got a very good reputation of submitting very good grant applications, and we are very successful at claiming those grants, which obviously is the benefit of everyone in the county borough. There are some very exciting schemes again has been added, and these will obviously help Virgin County Borough meet its obligations to reduce its carbon footprint as we work our way to the 2030 agenda. So it's just a thanks to the team really, and recognise the effort that's gone into claiming these grants to make these projects happen. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Deputy Leader. Any members? Any questions? We've had a mover and second. Are we all in favour of the report?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
All in
Right.
favour, Chair.
Silence,
Yes,
is good. Silence is good as well. Okay, right. It's item 7. Before we went to item 8, I've just received a message off Councillor White. His apologies away on holidays at the moment. He thought that had been given. So can we please add to the list of apologies for absence Councillor White on holidays? Councillor Phil White. So item 8 next. I think we're back to Jill. Annual Treasury Management Outturn 2021. Over to you, Jill. Item number 3. Oh, item 8.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And for the purposes of the recording, Jill Lewis, the Interim Chief Officer, Finance, Performance and Change. The report you have in front of you this afternoon is the annual Treasury Management Outturn report for 2021. And you will recall that you received this report on a 6-monthly basis to report an overview of Treasury activities for the preceding financial year, including the Treasury management indicators for 2021, and to highlight compliance with the Council's policies and practice. So the Code of Practice has a requirement for the Council to approve the Treasury management strategy before the start of the financial year, to present a half-year and an outturn report to Council. So you approved as Council the TMS 2021 on the 26th of February 2020, along with the capital strategy, and a half-year report was approved by Council in November. At that meeting in November, we asked Council to approve an increase in the investment limit to registered providers from 3 million to 5 million, and increase the total amounts that could be invested in money market funds from 20 million to 30 million. And that was as a result really of the pressure from the amount of cash that the Council was having to look after in terms of business grants and other issues related to COVID. So paragraph 3.3 also refers to Arlene Close, Treasury Management Advisors, who obviously provide a range of advice for the Council. We've worked with Arlene Close for a number of years, and Council will be familiar with that name, I'm sure. So the current situation is set out in 4.1, and that outlines, I think, the changing economic backgrounds that we've been operating within over the past year. Just before the start of the year, the Bank of England reduced the bank base rate down to 0.1%, which is the lowest rate that the UK has ever seen. And that rate's been maintained for the whole year. Since then, obviously, a range of measures have been put in place, the furlough schemes, specific support for businesses. I've referred to the business support grants, and also lockdown and business restriction grants. The number and the value of those was quite immense, as I'm sure Council will appreciate, with nearly 9,000 grants worth 50 million being processed through the Council. The impact on our cash flow and treasury management activities was obviously significant, and we had to be very agile and flexible in making short-term investments. Attached to the report at Appendix A is a summary of the treasury management activities for 2021. And I'll just highlight the main points if I could, Mr. Mayor. There was no long-term borrowing taken out during 2021 and no debt rescheduling. Favourable cash flows have provided surplus funds for investment, and the balance on investments at the 31st of March was 51.5 million, with an average interest rate of 0.21%. Still incredibly low compared to what we might have been used to in the past. The total external borrowing at the year end remained at 96.5 million, with an average interest rate of 4.5%. And that was split between the loans from the PWLB and the lender option borrower. I can't say it. Borrowers options, known as LOBOs, that again council will be familiar with. As I said, the investments at the year end total just over 50 million, which was a decrease in investments actually from the start of the financial year when they were 62 million. And that was as a consequence of the significant amount of grant funding paid to the council just as the national lockdown commenced in March 2020. So it slightly skewed the figures. The council's strategy, just to remind council when investing money, is set out in paragraph 426, having regard to security, then liquidity, and then yield. So we very much don't chase the highest rate of return, and we make a judgment call along with our advisors on the balance of where we invest, as you will be familiar with. We do use the published credit ratings, and they're set out in Appendix B to manage who we invest with. Investing in other local authorities is a prime means of the council investing short-term surplus cash. The returns are commensurate with the very low level of risk and default. And we do use other options for investments, including banks, building societies, central government, DMO, and money market funds, which are instant access, and spreading those investments reduces any credit risk or default to the council. Section 4 of Appendix A provides a comparison of actual against the original indicators for a range of measures in tables 4 to 6. And the narrative confirms that in 2021, the council operated within limits and the indicators as set out in the agreed TMS 2021 strategy. So that was all I wanted to draw your attention to, Mr. Mayor. So I'll take you to the recommendations at 9.1.
Thank you, Jill. Can I move and second the recommendations?
Move second.
Second. Okay, and all in favour?
Aye.
Deputy Leader, Councillor Williams.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Jill, for presenting the report. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on treasury management. It's a very complicated area, but suffice to say, for me, it has two purposes, and that is to ensure that the council has sufficient funds to meet its day-to-day obligations, and we do that very well. And also then is to ensure that any short-term surpluses are achieve a good return of rate, and quite often that will be with local authorities. They are considered to be a very safe bet rather than putting it on the horse at 3:30. So we certainly don't do that, and we've got a very safe team there that manage our finances very well, and I'm happy to move the report.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Leader. Any members have any questions? All get very quiet. Okay. Right, thank you for that, Jill. We'll move on then to item 9. We're now looking at elected member learning and development strategy. I think Kelly's taking this one. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the purposes of the recording, I'm Kelly Watson, Chief Officer, Legal, Regulatory and HR. Members, I'm here today to present the elected member learning and development strategy, and the purpose is so that you can approve the strategy which is appended to your report at Appendix 1. As you're aware, the current strategy has provided a framework for provision and delivery of member development through your term of office, your current term of office. That framework is coming towards the end of its effectiveness, and in anticipation of the 2022 elections, a desktop review has been undertaken, which has led to the strategy being updated. The strategy is divided into 5 phases, and these are set out at paragraph 4.1 of your report. It is proposed moving forward that greater use of the e-learning facilities will be incorporated into the programme, and these are set out in paragraph 4.3 for your attention. Members will be aware that the Democratic Services Committee have considered and endorsed this strategy. They determined it met the expectations and outcomes as set out in paragraph 4.5. And members, I'm happy to take any questions you have, but I would like it then to take you to the recommendations of paragraph 9. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Kelly. Moving first then to the recommendations. Give a mover and seconder.
Move.
Move. Second.
All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Members indicate questions. I'm all very quiet here today, which I'm not complaining about that, but hope you are all there in on the garden somewhere. Okay, must be moved and seconded. All in favour? There aren't any questions. I can see. No. Okay, thank you for that. Thank you, Kelly. We'll move on to item 10 then. Democratic Services Committee Annual Report, which I believe Councillor Alex Williams is going to introduce.
Mr. Mayor, I was just going to briefly introduce and then pass over to Councillor Williams, if that's okay.
Okay, Kelly first, then Councillor Williams, yeah. Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, the purpose of this report is to receive and note the Democratic Services Annual Report for the period May 2020 to May 2021. Under the Local Government Wales Measure 2011, we are required to establish a Democratic Services Committee, and that measure prescribes the functions that the committee undertakes. The committee has approved this annual report at its meeting on the 24th of June. And as mentioned, I'll now pass to Councillor Alex Williams, who has agreed to speak to the report on behalf of the committee. And then we'd ask you to note the recommendations in paragraph 9 again.
Thank you, Kelly. Councillor Williams.
Thanks, Kelly, and thanks, Mr. Mayor. For the purpose of the recording, I'm Councillor Alex Williams. I'm Group Leader of the Independence Alliance, and in Councillor Venable's absence, she is Chair of the Democratic Services Committee. I've been asked to present this report as she's a member of the group of a member of the leader of the member of the Independence Alliance group, of which she's a member. You will have all read the report, so I won't rehearse all of the information, although I would draw your attention to the committee's activities for the year, and they are listed at point 4.6. Which included consideration of the IRPW's report on members' financial compensation, the learning and development strategy, which we've just heard about from Kelly, and the member referrals process. The Democratic Services team is outlined at 4.7, and I would personally like to pay tribute to all staff during what has been a very challenging year for the team. During which they've been all under a huge amount of pressure. So I'm happy to take any questions as a member of the Democratic Services Committee, but in the absence of questions, I move that we note the report from the Democratic Services Committee Annual Report for 2020-21. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Alex. So that's been moved. Is there a seconder for the report?
Second.
All in favour?
Aye.
Do you have questions? Any members have any questions on Democratic Services Annual Report, item 10? No, okay. I think you're all happy with that then. Thank you, Alex, and thanks, Kelly, for that. That's been approved. Item 10. So we'll move on to item 11. Standards Committee Annual Report. Kelly, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members, this is another annual report for noting, and this time it is for the Standards Committee, again for the period May 2020 to May 2021. Again, there is a legislative requirement to establish a Standards Committee, the purpose of which is to promote and maintain high standards of probity and conduct in the Code of Conduct of its members. The current composition of our Standards Committee has 2 County Borough Councillors, 1 Town and Community Councillor and 4 independent members. Details of those members are found at paragraph 4.1.2 of your pack, and at 4.2.1 you will note the terms of office for those independent members and the Town and Community Councillor and the expiration date of those currently in the role. The terms of reference for the committee are set out at 4.3.2, and you will note that there have been 4 meetings during the reporting period. At paragraph 4.5, we have set out the work undertaken by the committee. I would ask members to note that this has included consideration of a referral from the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales, and the committee determined in that case that the former member had failed to comply with the Code of Conduct. And members, I'm not going to go through any more details, so unless there are any questions, I would ask you to note the report.
Thank you, Kelly. Do you have a mover and seconder for recommendations in the report?
Vote the report.
Seconded.
Second.
All in favour?
Aye.
Okay. Any questions from members? Okay. That's that. Moved and seconded. All in favour, right? We'll move on to item 12 then. Diversity and democracy. Kelly again. Next, I believe it was, yeah. Yeah, item 12, diversity and democracy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to advise members of the Welsh Local Government Association's Diversity in Democracy report and seek Council's endorsement of becoming a diverse council. The WLGA is committed to making a change in local government diversity at the 2022 local elections. It has acknowledged that despite previous actions and campaigns, there remains a lack of diversity in councils, and the data at 3.2 demonstrates this. At a special meeting in March, the WLGA Council endorsed its Diversity and Democracy report, which you will find at Appendix 1 of your papers. This report was a culmination of a cross-party working group, and BCBC were represented by Councillor Patel and Councillor Cheryl Green. The report builds on action plans and ambitions of councils and associated partners. It asks councils to prioritise action locally and progress diverse council declarations to provide a clear public commitment to improving diversity. Council's local diversity work will be supported by a national awareness campaign and support from the WLGA and Welsh Government. All BCBC members were asked to complete a diversity and inclusion survey earlier this year, and the figures from that survey are set out in paragraph 4.5. It is proposed that the council commits to being a diverse council and makes the declaration as set out in paragraph 4.6 of your report. To support this commitment, an action plan has been produced which will drive forward the actions. Democratic Services Committee have again considered the proposed actions, and it is acknowledged that whilst the council can be supportive of those proposed actions, it will ultimately be for the electorate to determine which candidate has their vote. Mr. Mayor, then take you to the recommendations of paragraph 9.
Thank you, Kelly. Could I put Councillor Patel?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Kelly, for that. I'd like to first of all move the recommendations in the report and say that, you know, doing something for diversity is something that I think we all agree. The WLGA report was unanimously supported by all parties and none of who were representing the local authorities on the council, and it's had a lot of involvement from the Minister for who was Housing and Local Government, and I think it's fed into the Local Government Elections Wales bill, and I think I just wanted to kind of support what Kelly said in terms of BCBC will do what it can to support members as soon as they come in the door, or this is what we're striving to do. However, you know, it is the electorate that decide ultimately, and I just wanted to say a stat. So in 2017, the Diversity Democracy Programme, which was the biggest and well-resourced programme, the conversion rate of one of the schemes, the mentoring one, 51 mentees participated, 16 stood and 4 were elected. So it's not, you know, that's nothing to do with BCBC. It is to do with the culture and kind of what we present as local members. I read with interest the report, and I just wanted to flag some of the comments that were raised in the meetings that I attended and Cheryl did. Sorry, Councillor Green. So, you know, there was a lack of awareness around the role of a councillor. So that is something we as elected members can actually start doing, is promoting ourselves and promoting the role of councillors generally. You know, we are often seen as the poor relation in the government structure. So this is something that we can do now. There's social media abuse directed at councillors, and that is getting worse. And that is something that everyone who participated in the conversations recognised. And I think there's something that we can do is, you know, first of all, don't do that. You know, it's not right, and report it if you see it. Training and development, which is a big feature of our action plan. Time commitment, and so particularly around working and family commitments. So again, that's something that we'll be looking at as a council, to kind of look at hybrid meetings, or you know, we do that questionnaire at the start of every term to say when do people want their meetings, and so that's covered off there. So I think I won't go on because I don't think I need to, but yeah, so I just wanted to flag that, you know, it is supported by all parties, and I hope that Bridgend Council and councillors present here today also recognise the need for improving diversity in democracy and support this.
Thank you, Councillor Patel, and you've moved that report. Do you have a seconder for the report?
Move. Second.
Okay. There are a couple of people indicate to speak now then. Councillor Matthew Boycey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I fully support the document, and in fact, as you're probably all aware, on a number of occasions I've asked for changes to the way that we hold business in terms of timings to allow working members to attend out of work hours. So I would fully support, once again, reviewing that. It's in the document that we need to perhaps be flexible with council meeting timings. I also fully support the idea of, you know, now we've started using digital means to attend, that continues, and members have a choice of whether they attend in person or digitally, because it might encourage people to be able to attend from their workplace or home or whatever, subject to other reasons why they can't physically attend. So I do welcome that. I also, as you know, we need to perhaps make these meetings a little less stuffy. I know there's a formality in these meetings. You know, a lot of members today have said they've had to leave early, etc. And yet we have 20 minutes of announcements, which could perhaps be put in a paper or a statement. So, you know, we do need to look at the way we move forward, and I welcome this document.
Thank you, Councillor Boycey. Leader, Councillor David.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to add my personal thanks to Councillor Patel and Councillor Green for their personal involvement on the national National Working Group on Diversity and Local Democracy is worthy of repeating the point that Councillor Patel made, that all 22 leaders of all 22 local authorities in Wales have endorsed this action plan. And when it was brought to the full council meeting of the Welsh Local Government Association, every member was in support of the actions that are proposed here. And I know that we will work hard to make sure that the specific action plans are progressed as quickly as possible. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Rod Shaw.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I also find I support the spirit and direction of travel, and I think it's wholly commendable, and thank for all those who have contributed. I also note that 3/4, or more than 3/4, of the respondents are male and white. There is a recurring theme in all, and I've read all these documents, there's a recurring theme in all this debate that perhaps we could address. The Equality Act 2010 defines Roma, Gypsy and travellers as ethnic groups, meaning they're legally protected against race discrimination. But they're almost wholly excluded from any of these papers. How could the council ensure the RGT population's more included? And can we become more, as we become more used to initialisms such as LGBTQ+, etc., can I ask the council to refer to RGT communities rather than the other frequently used terms? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw.
Can I just come back on that?
Patel, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to reassure Councillor Shaw that we will be looking at that specific group as part of the Cabinet Equalities Committee, and so as soon as we've got a paper ready, I'll ensure that that's sent over to you.
Great,
thank you very much, and thanks for your confirmation. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Councillor James Radcliffe next.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to agree with Councillor Voisey's comments and add that I've noticed on a number of members have had to leave meetings early or arrive late as a result of childcare commitments. I'm one of them. And that's a problem that could be quite simply solved by changing the timing of meetings. So morning meetings start a bit later and afternoon meetings start a bit earlier so people can take their kids to school or not. And so I'd like the authority to look at that as well, please, to make sure that in a post-coronavirus world, the traditional childcare options aren't necessarily available at the moment. So that's something that needs to be looked at as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Radcliffe, for that. As I said, it's a post-COVID world, but there is the option of carers allowance, which is built into the current system from the Independent Remuneration Panel. Councillor Kelly Watts, Kelly? You got anything to say? Oh, sorry.
Just on that point, Mr. Mayor, just to confirm that obviously when we get into the new term, there will be a survey of meetings undertaken and proposals will be put forward that will go to democratic services, but ultimately it is for members to decide what time your meeting starts. So when we've done this previously, the results of those surveys come to council, and council then determines what time the meetings will start. But we will be looking at that again and putting more options forward as we get into 2022.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Councillor Paul Davis next.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Kelly has stolen a little bit of my thunder there. I agree also with Councillor Radcliffe and Councillor Voisey that how people manage, Chair, who work in full time. I work full time, but luckily for me, I work for Neath Portobello Council, as you're well aware, and my manager is very supportive, and we have a good. I get leave to take these to come to these meetings. I know a lot of people don't get that. How they manage, I'll never ever know. I was just going to say what Kelly just said. You know, we can talk about this and shout and ball all we want. The problem is, come the next term, if whoever's here then, if it's a majority of people that don't work, they'll all vote for meetings in the day because it's obviously easier for them, which is exactly what happened in 2017. So, you know, I hope it's going to change. I support the report, obviously, with, you know, the LGBT and other parts. So obviously I do, but I do fear that come 2022, if I am back in, or if other people are here, then that exactly the same thing is going to happen as happened before, and we end up in the same position we are now, unfortunately. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Ross-Tom, Ben Thomas next.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. Yeah, this report is something I can concur wholeheartedly with, and I'm really pleased to see it coming forward this afternoon. It very much sets out the local authority's stall in promoting diversity and democracy. There are heaps of evidence gathering projects that will show diversity in the decision-making process is one that can lead to better outcomes, and broadly speaking, it does. And I think we need to do everything that we can to support it. I think it's also very important that the diverse communities that make up Bridgend County and the 140,000 plus residents that live here feel that they are reflected in the faces and the minds and the thoughts that make up 54 elected members in Bridgend Council. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you for that. We've got two more people speaking. Councillor Nora Clark, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with most things that previous colleagues have said. I know it's going forward from 2022. I think there needs to be some thought. I mean, I'm just dropping this in that, you know, meetings, afternoon meetings. I mean, most meetings would start at 2 o'clock, but we've got cabinet starting at 2:30 and we've got council starting at 3 o'clock. You know, there should be a specific time, 2 o'clock, and call it 2 o'clock for all meetings. I don't know, you know, where the decision came from that, you know, different meetings start at different times, but it would be so much easier, and it would be easier for people that need to pick children up from school, etc., if everything started at 2 o'clock, and hopefully it would be over by the end of school day. Thank you.
Okay, thank Councillor Clark. And Councillor Sorrell Dendy next.
Thank you very much, Chair. Going forward, we know that there's going to be a case of people being able to attend meetings from home. That would be very, very beneficial for me, partly because some of the meeting times makes it difficult to get there on public transport as someone who can't afford to have a car. But on top of that, when I get pain flare-ups as well, it's very difficult for me to be able to sometimes leave the house. So I was just wondering, have we got it in place ready for when there's potential for us to go back for members to be able to join in through IT equipment, and is there any kind of obstacles in the way at the moment for that to be started off right from the get-go? Thank you.
I think hybrid meetings are on the definitely agenda. Kelly, can you add to that? Or Councillor Patel, one of you?
Yes. I was just going to say,
first.
I think Mark Alvin's in the office on Friday looking at how we do that. So yeah, it's been addressed. There he is, look.
There we are. We are looking at hybrid meetings, Councillor Dendy, and as Councillor Patel said, Mark and the team are looking at them. They're coming into the office to test some equipment on Friday, and they virtually visited Cardiff and the Vale. There are some complications because if people are in the chamber, there will be echo if people are trying to use Teams and the equipment in the chamber. But the other thing we do have to consider is the Welsh Government guidance still states people should work from home where possible. So there's not going to be an immediate return to the office, but we are working on when we can start to introduce small numbers back in.
Yeah, just to echo that, Mr. Mayor, yeah, we are actively considering this and going forward, and we're doing a survey of members also to see who are comfortable coming back into the office as opposed to those who are not. But it is something that it will be actively pursued imminently going forward.
Lovely, thank you for that. I wait to see the results, and I hope in the future as well we'll even be able to vote by buttons, perhaps remotely. But that's also for the future. Right, that's been moved and seconded. Well, any comments and questions? All in favour?
Yes.
All quiet.
Aye. Aye.
Right, okay. What I propose to do is take item 13, and then we'll see if we're having a quick break. And I know some people have said they have to leave at 16:30, some have had to leave at 1600. But if we can take item 13 now, Kelly, then review political balance, and then we'll have a short break.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is my last report today, and the purpose of the report is to advise Council of the outcome of the political balance of the authority resulting from changes to the membership of political groups, and to seek approval of the revised political balance and approve the allocation of seats to political groups in accordance with the political balance rules. These changes are set out at Appendix 1 of your report. As members will be aware, there has been a recent change to the membership of political groups. Councillor Caroline Webster has left the Conservative group to join the Independent Alliance group. The change outlined has therefore affected the political balance on committees. They are set out at 4.1. There are 4 changes highlighted. I just need to slightly amend bullet point 2, Development Control Committee, because the Conservatives are also gaining a seat on that committee. Following the review, the membership of the committees has been updated, and as I said, that's at Appendix 1. The group leaders of the Independent Alliance and the Conservative groups have been announced to us today, the changes required as detailed in paragraph 4.1. So with your permission, Mr Mayor, if those group leaders can indicate their appointments to those seats.
Right, Councillor Alex Williams.
Yes, Councillor Carolyn Webster will be joining the will be staying on the planning committee, but as a member for the Independent Alliance. She will be moving from Overview and Scrutiny Committee 2 to Overview and Scrutiny Committee 1, and she'll be remaining on the Town and Community Council Forum, but as an Independent Alliance member rather than as a Conservative member. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Do we have any announcement from the Conservative group? Councillor
Yes.
Voicey?
Yeah.
Councillor
Councillor Sadie Vidal will take the vacant place on the Planning and Development Control Committee.
Okay, thank you for that. We've got the names there, so we need a mover and second of the report and the recommendations with those names.
Right.
Second.
Yep.
Seconded report. Are you all in favour?
Right. Yep. Yep.
Right, thank you for that. That's item 13 then. So we have 2 items left and urgent items. I propose now is to have a break at 16:28 in my computers. If we go to 16:40, hopefully your clocks are all pretty similar, but if we have best part of a 10-minute break, chance to get a quick refresh drink of water or something non-alcoholic, and we'll restart again at 16:40, and then we'll take the questions item 14 and the quarterly debate item 15.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
See you all back in 10 minutes or 16:40 to start.